Shut up and sit down.
MVP Picks, your home for mixed martial arts news and betting advice.
Hello, welcome. This is the MVP Picks podcast. I'm your host, Mike Picklick, and we got a pretty big show today. We're going to be talking about PFL that happened last Thursday. It was the regular season heavyweights and women's lightweights fight night. Saw the debut of Kamaru Usman's brother, Muhammad Usman, and got to see the debut of Fabricio Werdum, former UFC heavyweight champion. Kind of a controversial decision made in the main event, but we'll talk about that. Bellator 258 occurred on Friday. They have a new champ in the bantamweight division. Pretty exciting. And probably the most anticipated fight on the Bellator 258 main card, the return of Anthony Rumble Johnson. His last fight was in 2017 against the former double champ of the UFC, Daniel Cormier. And it was pretty spectacular performance by Rumble considering his time off. So that will be talked about later in the show. And then UFC Vegas 26 happened on Saturday. And it was, fights were falling out. The main event was pulled. It was originally Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw, which was, come on, that's a massive fight for the bantamweight division. Probably a title eliminator, if I had to say so. But we did have a replacement for the main event. It was Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson. They stepped up on short notice, and instead of fighting at strawweight, they made the bout at flyweight. So the two fighters could easily make the weight limit. And then Canelo Alvarez, the pride of Mexico, took on Billy Joe Saunders for the super middleweight title. And that was an incredible fight, an incredible spectacle. It, of course, took place in Dallas Cowboys Stadium. And wow, the place was packed. It was amazing. And then we're going to be talking about the bets we made. Did we have a successful weekend? And then we're going to be going over UFC 262, looking at the main event with Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira, and then the co-main event with Tony Ferguson and Beneil Dariush. And just the rest of the card, we're going to see if there's maybe any tasty lines we should, be focused on and see if we can really try and make some money this weekend. Okay, so let's get into the news.
It's now time for your mixed martial arts news update.
Okay, so first, let's talk about PFL regular season heavyweights versus women's lightweights. It was a pretty good card. I remember watching PFL a couple years ago. It wasn't exactly where it's at now, not as many viewers. It was on ESPN, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. They really had a resurgence in the past couple months. They've done a great job promoting it on social media. Commercials have been great. And overall, I've tuned in for 2 of the 3 events, and I gotta say I'm impressed. I'm really enjoying what PFL is doing. But getting into the fight card, we saw the debut of Muhammad Usman. Muhammad Usman is Kamaru Usman's brother, and if you don't know Kamaru Usman, he is probably the pound for pound greatest fighter in mixed martial arts right now. He's on another level. But it was a unsuccessful night for Muhammad Usman. He did suffer a knockout loss to Brandon Sales. And listen, these guys were swinging everything but the kitchen sink at each other. It was, he was fighting a little reckless, and he does look very small for his weight class. He fights in the heavyweight division. And to be honest, just comparing him and Brandon Sales, it wasn't a good matchup for Muhammad. And I truly think that he is a 205er, not a heavyweight. This now leads me to Kayla Harrison. She is last year's lightweight champion, and she made her 2021 PFL debut against Marina Mosare. And man, this Kayla Harrison is something else. She finished the fight a minute and 23 seconds in the very first round. I mean, she's 9-0. She's a stud. I mean, and what was awesome was the promo she cut after her fight when she was getting interviewed by Sean O'Connell. And essentially what she was saying was, I'm going to repeat. I'm going to win again. And I mean, I believe her. I think, for Kayla Harrison, it isn't doing her justice fighting in the PFL right now. I mean, she is a former Olympic gold medalist in judo. She's a former champion in PFL. And I just think, she's wasting her time a little bit. I think she needs to be, thinking about the UFC or Bellator. There's a lot more fights for her there. Let's now get into the main event of the PFL heavyweights and women's lightweight fight night. It was Fabricio Werdum, former UFC heavyweight champion, versus Renan Ferreira. And it was a big time miss by Keith Peterson, the referee. So Werdum was using his wrestling, using his jiu-jitsu against Renan Ferreira, trying to put him in chokes, trying to just tire him out. And Fabricio was using his strengths. He was using his grappling, and he got Ferreira in a triangle choke. Now, they were up against the fence, and Keith Peterson was on the other side of the fighters, and he couldn't see that Ferreira was actually tapping. The choke was very tight. Fabricio had him at a good angle, and he had the choke sunk in. Ferreira had tapped, but Keith Peterson didn't see it. So when Fabricio kind of let loose a little bit, Ferreira just busted out and started, ground and pounding him and just, punching his face in. And man, it didn't last long after that. I mean, Werdum got knocked out, but immediately there was controversy. He got up and he was saying how he tapped. It's a tough break for Werdum. I don't think it's going to be overturned. I really think that Werdum just got insanely unlucky, and it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth a little bit. The Werdum, he's in his 40s. This is probably his last run at a mixed martial arts championship, and it was just tough to see. Hopefully he'll be fighting again and he can make right of that unlucky situation. Okay, now so let's get into Bellator 258, Archuleta versus Pettis. Starting with the first fight of the main card, it was Mike Page versus Derek Anderson. Mike Page totally outclassed Derek. I mean, just kept his distance, picked him apart, and landed a nasty high kick that just completely flattened Derek Anderson's nose. Like, I've never seen a guy's nose go that flat. He just whacked him. And Anderson didn't even see it coming. That quickly ended the fight. Obviously, it was at the nearing the end of the second round that he landed the kick, and as soon as Anderson went to sit in the stool, the doctor stopped it. So great performance by Michael Venom Page. The second fight of the main card was Patricky Pitbull versus Peter Corley. Again, bit of a controversial stoppage. I mean, it was stopped due to cut, so it wasn't exactly a spectacular finish by Peter Corley. The cut occurred in the second round. Patricky Pitbull took down Peter Corley and wasn't really doing much. It was mainly Peter on the bottom, slashing him with elbows, hitting him with punches, and I think it was an elbow. He sliced Patricky's forehead open, and the cut was so bad that the doctor came in, took a look at it, and stopped the fight. Yeah, I'd like to see them run it back. It wasn't really. If I were a judge, I'd be giving the fight to Patricky Pitbull, just based on how the fight was going. He was dictating it. He was landing the takedowns. He was landing punches, and yeah, so again, bit of a controversial win, but regardless, it was still a great performance by Peter. He was handling Patricky. He was staying in there. He was trading in the pocket, so can't take too much away from him. And then let's go into the co-main event. This was a great fight. Great fight. Anthony Johnson versus Jose Augusto Azevedo. Jose, of course, was a last-minute replacement. It was originally supposed to be Anthony Johnson versus Yoel Romero. Both Yoel and Johnson were set to make their Bellator debuts. Needless to say, Rumble Johnson is back. He scored a second round knockout. The first round was pretty wild. Rumble was landing the bigger punches, but credit to Jose taking the fight on last minute, landed an insane left hook, which just caught Rumble and sent him scrambling for the takedown. He eventually got it and, rode out the first round on top. And then, as soon as that second round came, Rumble just came out and landed a beautiful shot, knocking out Jose Augusto. Yeah, this fight was a part of the Bellator light heavyweight tournament, and it was the last fight of the first round. So Rumble Johnson, of course, moves forward. He will be taking on Vladimir Nemkov, the Bellator light heavyweight champion. So welcome back, Rumble. That was a great fight. What a statement to make in your first fight in Bellator. To score a knockout like that against a game opponent. And let's not forget a 4-year layoff for Rumble. And he comes back and he does that. Congrats to him, truly. It was a great fight. And now going into the main event, Juan Archuleta versus Sergio Pettis. This was a very technical fight. They were trading with each other. Juan Archuleta is mainly a grappler, so he's really trying to land those takedowns. But Sergio was just able to deflect him and, was just keeping it on the feet. And, really, it was really a chess match between the two. It was a great fight. Sergio Pettis, of course, takes home the belt. And listen, good for Sergio, man. He really put his time in Bellator. The fights I watched him in did extremely well. Just it's a bit sad that the UFC had to let him go, but just looking at him now, he looked extremely happy winning the belt. He looked very thankful. He looked very grateful, and it's awesome to see guys win championships. That's the pinnacle of MMA, right? It's like the winning a Super Bowl in the NFL or winning a Grey Cup. It's the pinnacle of the sport, and to reach it is a huge accomplishment and masterful performance by Sergio Pettis. There's going to be a lot of great fights. The bantamweight division in Bellator is insanely deep, so there's going to be a lot of good fights for him there. Let's now get into the UFC Vegas 26 fight night. Lot of controversy surrounding the card, a lot of fallouts. The original main event was Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw. That got canceled because of a injury in the Dillashaw camp. But it was replaced with a great main event in Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson. They stepped up on short notice and fought a flyweight bout. The two are strawweights, but seeing as it was a last-minute fight, they didn't want them cutting that much weight, which led them to fight at the weight class above them. But a dominant performance by Marina Rodriguez. Michelle Waterson did hang in the pocket. She was there the whole fight. It was a good scrap, but Marina Rodriguez really made a statement beating Michelle Waterson. As for what's next for her, I can see someone in the top 5 of the strawweight division. She's looking really good. She's having a great 2021. She's coming up, of course, off a knockout of Amanda Ribas a couple months ago. So yeah, great main event, great replacement. The co-main was originally supposed to be Diego Sanchez versus Cowboy Cerrone, but Diego Sanchez now no longer a part of the UFC. He was cut last week. So that led the UFC to scramble for a replacement for Cowboy Cerrone, which ended up being Alex Morano. The co-main, it was again, it was kind of sad seeing Cowboy get knocked out like that. It wasn't a complete knockout, but it was a TKO. Alex Morano, of course, takes the fight on short notice and makes a statement win by finishing Cowboy in the first round. Uh, I mean, Cowboy's now riding a 5-fight losing streak. It's not looking good. I'm being really honest. Cowboy, he's no spring chicken. He's getting up there in age, and the last couple fights have been really hard to watch. I mean, as a UFC fan, you can't not love the UFC and not love Cowboy Cerrone. You just can't. He's a legend of the sport. He holds so many records, but that fight was just, I mean, he looked like he didn't want to be there, to be honest. And that's no knock on Donald Cerrone, but I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Alex Morano. It was a great performance, but Cowboy Cerrone, it, I really am not starting to. I'm not really enjoying watching Cerrone fight anymore because it's just not. It doesn't end good for him. When he's up against these young, hungry guys, it never ends. It never ends well. So that was the co-main event. Just looking at some more highlights. Neil Magny defeats Jeff O'Neill. Another fight: Diego Ferreira versus Gregor Gillespie. Diego missed weight by about 5 pounds, so he had to forfeit 30% of his purse to Gregor Gillespie. And man, like what a first round! Gregor looked very hurt. I mean, Diego was catching him with some punches, and of course, when you're gonna weigh a little bit more in the octagon, your punches are gonna hurt. I mean, he didn't cut as much weight, meaning that he's definitely gonna weigh a lot more on fight night. And you saw it. You saw it with his power. He was touching up Gillespie, and just the heart of Gillespie, man, just wore out the storm of Fiera, kept on taking him down, rode it out to the second round, and obviously Fiera looked gassed, and Gillespie just took advantage and was able to get the TKO. It was a great weekend of mixed martial arts, and to cap it all off was a great boxing fight between Canelo Alvarez and Billy Joe Saunders. This was, of course, for the super middleweight title. It was a spectacle. It was awesome. Canelo Alvarez truly is one of the greatest boxers right now. I think he's the pound for pound king. This guy's fighting every other month. He sells out arenas. This, of course, took place at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, in front of 73,000 people. I mean, the walkout gave me chills. It was awesome. Everyone was singing. It was awesome. As far as the fight went, it was very, very competitive. Billy Joe and Canelo were just trading back and forth. Some of the judges had it for Billy Joe. Some of them, like, it was a close fight, but Canelo ultimately was just pouring it on him in the 8th round, hitting him with some big shots, and he caught him with an uppercut that shattered Billy Joe's orbital bone. It was the end of the 8th round. They each went back to their stools, and Billy Joe couldn't get up, so the doctor stopped the bout. But it was awesome. That was, again, boxing needs to be more like what occurred on Saturday. Not enough big spectacle fights anymore like that. That's the problem with boxing. That's what they're struggling with. Fighters don't The best of the best do not want to fight each other. But this past Saturday, we definitely saw the best of the best, and it made for an amazing fight. That's all for news. Let's get into some betting. We're going to be looking at the bets I made this past weekend and some future bets coming up.
It's now time for your MVP Power Picks recap.
All right, so let's look at some MMA betting. This past weekend, I did go 5-4. Yeah, I know that's not the best, but like when I look back now, I made a couple errors, maybe picking some of the fighters that I did, but I did have some good wins. I thought I had some good value wins. So let's start with Bellator. I picked Derek Anderson. He was at plus 225 to beat Michael Page. That of course didn't happen. He got completely dominated by Michael Page. And like I said before, I've never seen a nose flatter than what he had after he fought Michael Page. So that was the first L, and then the second loss came from Patricky Pitbull versus Peter Quarry. Like I said, I thought it was a very bad stoppage by the doctor. I thought I've seen way bigger cuts. I've seen fights go on with nastier gashes, way worse cuts. So that was again I felt like that's the one we kind of got robbed in a little bit, but it's all good. And then next was Anthony Johnson versus Jose Augusto. Again, we went with Anthony Johnson. All right, so then going to the main event. This one, listen, this one was a good one for me. I'm pretty proud of that I predicted this one. So it was Juan Archuleta versus Sergio Pettis. That was, of course, for the bantamweight title, and I had Sergio. A lot of people thought Juan was going to give Sergio trouble, but my thought process was that Serge, he's fought the best of the best. He's 0-2 in his Bellator career so far, and listen, Juan has not fought a guy like Serge. Like Sergio is a very good striker. He's a world class striker. He stood in there with some of the best, and he was an underdog at plus 125, and we hit that. So that was a good win. So for the Bellator card, we went 2-2. One of the fights was a little controversial with the doctor stoppage, but 2-2, we broke even. That's a good night. Moving on to the UFC. So in the preliminary card, we had Philip Hayes versus Kyle Dawkins. I of course took Kyle Dawkins. Kyle Dawkins struggled a little bit with Philip Hayes. Philip Hayes did put the pressure on him, and grinded out a hard, tough earned decision. And then, so going into the main card now, we had Gregor Gillespie versus Diego Ferreira. Gregor Gillespie was the guy I chose, and he was sitting at minus 182. So, that's still he is the favorite, but that's really good value. So, you know, could easily profit betting on Gregor Gillespie that night. And then we had a heavyweight bout, Marcos Rodrigo de Lima versus Maurice Green. Extremely lackluster. Marcos Rogero just pretty much lied on Marcus Green. We did have Marcos. He was at 190. So again, that's another good value bet. Anything under minus 200, I'd say is good enough to take. You could easily make your money back. You gotta put it down. You gotta put some money down to definitely win some money, but it's the odds are still in your favor, right? Neil Magny versus Jeff O'Neill. I had Neil Magny. He was an underdog win. He was sitting at plus 160, so that is another good value win. Um, and then again, I really bit myself in the butt making the decision for this fight. I picked Donald Cerrone over Alex Morano. The thinking behind that was that Donald Cerrone looked pretty good in his last fight against Anthony Pettis, and Anthony Pettis actually beat Alex Morano as of recently. So my thought process was that Donald Cerrone, kind of have the same game plan as Pettis. pick him apart from the outside, keep his distance, stick and move. But that was not the case. Alex Morano came in there um, looking to make a statement and ultimately did, scoring the first round knockout. So we went 3-2 in the UFC, 2-2 in Bellator. That leaves us at 5-4, which is, listen, that's an okay night. As you know, it was looking rough in the beginning, going 2-2 on Friday, but it's always good to break even. And it's just a reminder to never bet outside your comfort zone. Always be sure that you're comfortable with what you're betting. Make the same bets every fight. That's a good lesson I've learned. Yeah, so far 5-4, not the best, but we will come back this week at UFC 262 as Michael Chandler takes on Diego Ferreira in the main event, and then the co-main event we have Beneil Dariush versus Tony Ferguson. So let's get into UFC 262. Just looking at the main card, Michael Chandler is the underdog. He's sitting at plus 110. That is tasty. That is something I would urge you to jump on right away because yes, Charles Oliveira is riding a massive win streak. I just think Michael Chandler, I mean, listen, he's here to win. I've been seeing lots of interviews with him. He's extremely motivated, he's extremely confident. He had a great first fight in the UFC. He, of course, came from Bellator, fought a number of years there, and just recently fought Dan Hooker. It was the co-main event for the Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 2 card, and he scored a spectacular first-round knockout against Dan Hooker. Charles Oliveira is, of course, coming off a 3-round decision versus Tony Ferguson, plus 10 on Bet365. That's good value. That is great value. I would hop on that instantly. Beneil Dariush versus Tony Ferguson. Tony, he's 0-2 in his last 2 fights, and then Beneil Dariush is on the come up. He's on the rise. Beneil is sitting at 155. That is great value. Great value. I would go with Beneil Dariush in this matchup. I think he's just on. Listen, Tony Ferguson will forever be one of the greatest lightweights to ever fight in the UFC, but Beneil is just on a tear right now, and that is something I would really urge you to look into. Some more fights: Edmen Shahbazyan versus Jack Hermansson. Both guys are coming off tough losses, so that is honestly kind of a toss-up. Edmen Shahbazyan is the underdog right now. I would have to lean more towards Jack Hermansson. I think I would go with Jack Hermansson. He's sitting at minus 150. As for the other fights, just looking, it's yeah, I don't know. I feel like those are the 3 fights that I would focus on right now. Michael Chandler, Beneil Dariush, and Jack Hermansson. They're all sitting at good numbers right now. Michael Chandler is the underdog, and Beneil Dariush and Jack Hermansson are the favorites. So just looking at the card right now, I'm thinking those 3. I'm gonna have more on Friday. We're gonna be going over the whole fight card actually, and I'm gonna be giving you my predictions. As for this weekend though, this is gonna be a barn burner. This is gonna be such a good fight card. I'm excited. Lots of money to be made this weekend, so do your research. I'm gonna be posting on my Instagram at MVPPicks19. You can follow me there and feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to discuss bets with you guys. And yeah, this is it. This is the first episode. This has been the first episode of the MVP podcast. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if you have any tasty bets that you're looking at for this upcoming weekend for UFC 262. And yeah, let me know in the comments. This has been the MVP Picks podcast. We'll be back on Friday. Until then, have a great week, and I'll talk to you Friday. Cheers.